multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting rational numbers. So this is again another topic that's related to multiplying integers, multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting integers again. So when we're multiplying and we're dividing, as I mentioned in the earlier lessons, that if you're multiplying, for instance, here you count how many, or dividing, that is, you count how many negatives you have. 1, 2, 3. So if you have an odd number of negatives, the answer is negative. Here, for instance, you have an even number of negatives, the answer is positive. So if you have an even number of negatives, the answer is positive. If you have an odd number of negatives, the answer is negative. That's only when you're multiplying and dividing that you could have that approach. Of course, you know, negative times negative is positive, but let's say here you have negatives all over the place. You could just count them, see if you have odd or even number of negatives, and based on that, you could write your answer. So here, right away, I have one negative, so it's an odd number of negatives, so my answer is negative. Then all I could do is reduce fractions. So always don't multiply tops together and bottoms together and reduce later, because the numbers will get too big on you. So reduce. So here, 2 goes into itself once, goes into 8 4 times, and now we have 1 times 7 on top, and 3 times 4 on the bottom, so 7 over 12. We go here, the answer is going to be positive because we have an even number of negatives. And then you reduce. So reducing, you could reduce diagonally, and if you can't, you could also reduce within one fraction, like here, 3 goes into 9 3 times, 12, 3 goes into 12 4 times, and you cannot reduce anymore. So now just multiply tops together, you get 15 and 32 on the bottom. Again, you ignore the negatives. Once you determine what your answer is, if it's negative or positive, those negatives become irrelevant. Dividing, when you're dividing, the first thing you need to do is change it to multiplication. You keep the 3 over 7 the same, but you change the division to multiplication, and you flip the divisor. So it's 14 over negative 9. The answer is going to be negative. Now I ignore the signs. Reduce, 7 goes into itself once, goes into 14 twice. 3 goes into itself once, goes into 9 3 times, and the answer here again is going to be negative 2 over 3. Here, 7 over negative 8. Change it to multiplication, flip, that's 14 over negative 9. Now, 2 goes into 8 4 times, goes into 14 7 times. That's all I could reduce. My answer, because we have an even number of negatives, the answer is positive. I don't have to write it when it's positive. And then you multiply the tops together, you get 49, sorry. And you multiply the bottoms together and you get 36. Here, the same thing, you rewrite this. And so you get negative 3 over 5 times 12 over negative 5 times 10 over negative 9. The answer, you have 3 negatives, so it's an odd number of negatives, then the answer should be negative. Now you ignore the signs and you start reducing. 5 goes into itself once, goes into 10 twice. 3 goes into itself once, goes into 9 3 times. This 3 goes into itself once, goes into 12 4 times. Now we have 5 on the bottom. 5 times 1 is 5. And 4 times 2 is 8 on top. So negative 8 over 5 is your answer. Last one in multiplying and dividing. This is 18 over 5 times. Remember, there's a 1 here. So we just flip it and make it 1 over negative 3. And then multiply. And we get 2 over 3 here. So now we start reducing. 3 goes into itself once. And before we start reducing, we know we have an odd number of negatives here. So my answer is negative. And that way we could just ignore the signs determining the answer, if it's negative or positive right away. And it goes into 18 6 times. 3 goes into itself once. It goes into 6 twice. Now cannot reduce anymore. So 2 times 2 is 4 on top, 5 times 1 is 5 on the bottom, and that's our answer. So adding and subtracting rational numbers. So always when you're doing questions like this, you rewrite this as 3 over 11. We have two signs besides one another here, even though one inside a bracket. Whenever you have that kind of situations, like in integers, opposite signs will give you a minus. So you just write them as a minus 5 over 11. Now, because we have a common denominator here, then we just add or subtract the top numbers. 3 minus 5 is negative 2 over 11. Here, this stays as negative 2 over 3. But here we have two signs. So it doesn't matter if the sign is on top or on the bottom. You just look at them this way. Like you have a plus here and a minus. They are opposite signs. So this is going to become minus. And then you don't have that ambiguity anymore. Minus 4 over 9. And therefore, the common denominator here is going to be 9. Now, 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Minus 9 divided by 9 is 1. 1 times 4 is 4. And that's going to give you negative 10 over 9. Just the way I do common denominator. You could do it any way you like, but that's how I do. I find the common denominator, then I go the common denominator divided by the bottom of the first fraction. Whatever I get, which 9 divided by 3, I get a 3. Then you multiply that 3 into here, and then you do the same thing to the second fraction. So you go 9 divided by 9 is 1. So you got 1, and that 1 you multiply it into the 4. You get 4. And obviously, because the common denominator is 9, so you're going to get 4 on top, since this is the 9 as well. Here, first of all, we have a negative over negative. That's a positive. Because here, if you look at this fraction right here, it's like negative 3 divided by negative 7. When you're dividing in here, negative divided by negative is positive. But just if you have a negative on top of a negative, they cancel each other out. So you get 3 over 7. Minus, you don't need this bracket, so just 2 over 5, which is the common denominator is 35. 35 divided by 7 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. Minus 35 divided by 5 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. And therefore, the answer here is going to be 1 over 35. We'll continue. That's negative 7 over 8. Minus and negative, two signs besides one another. And both are the same signs. When you have the same signs, like in this kind of situation, they just become simply plus 1 over 4. The common denominator is 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1 times negative 7 is negative 7. Plus 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. So you get negative 5 over 8, because negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. One more. This is 9 over 11. Minus a negative is plus. And so this becomes plus 3 over 5. The common denominator here is 55. 55 divided by 11 is 5. 5 times 9 is 45. Plus 55 divided by 5 is 11. 11 times 3 is 33. And now that's going to give me 78 when you add them, 78 over 55. And that's your answer. So next time, I think I'll do the order of operations, where we're going to mix adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So till next time, stay safe. Math is like a puzzle, and puzzles are fun to solve. So keep at it. Till next time, bye-bye.